What's a bringer? You missed yesterday's show. I'm here, holding on to the new frontiers. You're still playing the game, aren't you? I'm here. Let go of the game. Listen, if you do not let go of the game in the next 5 minutes, Trixie will have your arse! Okay, let's try this one. You get over here, do the show, or you're reparting words tomorrow. So anyway, picture this. It's 97, 98. You just got a computer. And somebody out there is getting really into the world of fanfics, especially Sonic ones. His mom's been reading them to him and been finding all sorts of really cool stories. The Sonic OAV hasn't come out yet. You don't even know about Paramount getting ready to do this years later. You already have plans of what you would make a great Sonic movie. And the last thing you hear about Sonic movie is in the letters column of the RC Comics saying, oh, Sonic is getting a feature film one day. Yeah, it took that long, people. You're excited. You want to find something cooler to read. When you stumble on a fanfic that calls itself Sonic the Movie. And that's the story we have today. Yeah. Years ago, I found this. And I've been wanting to re-find it for the longest time now to actually give it a good read. Because I'm quite curious as to see what this person would set up as Sonic the Movie. Because we probably all had our ideas as a kid. And considering that apparently Sonic Frontiers is doing really well with a bunch of reviews, except for that one guy, that guy needs to get a life. I decided, let's go back and read something from the past. So here it is. By Jason Dorfrage. Yeah, I had to go all the way deep into history for this one. Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Planet Mobius. In the vastness of the cosmos, it was a tiny, insignificant dot against the black veil of inky space. At a distance glance, one could not see the horrors of evil beings that wrought along this little world. Even if we were to zoom in closer, we would not tell that the planet had once been the brink of total devastation. Only a small few groups of warriors had saved this planet from a technological nightmare. And only after that had the planet itself been transformed back into the idyllic world thanks to the efforts of a few inhabitants. No, Mobius itself had finally been free of its horror, and the only scars left were in the minds of the people of Mobius themselves. A small yellow, battered hovercar skimmed high above the trees. The sun glinted harshly off the tinted windshield as it dipped and swerved in the air currents. The motor made irregular noises as it tried valiantly to keep the car afloat. Inside, the little occupant calmly watched the scenery float by. He adjusted his rimless glasses on his wrinkled nose as he pursued the trees with all lengths as he moved underneath him. Has it really been 10 years? Thought Rotor the Walrus. I have been gone too long. He adjusted the speed of his air car and touched the control button, then retracted the roof, allowing the fresh air to permeate the interior. He marveled at the changes the planet had went through in the past 10 years. Robotropolis had totally dismantled, and the materials used to create the kingdom of New Mobotropolis. It had been quite a few years, but judging from the pictures he had seen of the city, it was a splendid job. The palace had been completely restored on the hill, as well as the palace fountain and the large statue of King Acorn, who was now retired. The new palace resembled the old one, right down to the waterfalls, cascading down to the sides of trees and bushes that grew out of the hillside gardens. Behind the waterfalls were several dozen shield generators that linked up to one giant shield that surrounded the palace. It could be raised or lowered in an instant to repel attacks against from the outside. was a largely effective choice of defensive weaponry proudly designed by one Uncle Chuck. The city had been restored using the original blueprints, with some minor adjustments. Although Uncle Chuck was not hesitant to employ the use of machines, the horrors the other Mobians had seen of Robotnik's technology had scared the people into accepting a more humble lifestyle. Using water and air power instead of the oil and gas power had polluted the planet for so long. You know, if that was the explanation for that culture on Star Trek for not using technology, I think I would have enjoyed Insurrection more. But with the humble lifestyle came the realization that protection was necessary, and other attacks on them were inevitable. That is why the Mobian army was created, and so technology such as layered weaponry were kept. Rare thought again about Uncle Chuck and his offenses on pollution control. The brilliant Hedgehog had churned out device after device of pollution prevention gadgetry. It was even working on an invention to restore part of the ozone layer of a new metropolis. Rotor patted another of Uncle Chuck's inventions beside him, an handheld derobotizer, a small gadget that incorporated the technology of the original robotizer into a smaller unit. It also functioned the same way. Point and shoot, basically. The portable derobotizer, or Poro, as Rotor was fond of calling it, had saved his life more times than he cared to admit. As for the people who had been roboticized, thanks again to Uncle Chuck and some small help from Rotor at first, they had been rounded up and deroboticized. It had been easy. When none left controlling them, the robots simply wandered around confusedly, until they were picked up, deroboticized, and returned to the palace. Unfortunately, there were still some roboticized people, at a smaller extent, some of Robotnik's creations left around. People would still have to be careful if they happened to meet one of them. Nevertheless, the planet had enjoyed peace and prosperity for more than 10 years. Rotor shook his head to clear his thoughts. His eyes wandered to his dashboard. Several dozen small pictures were taped all over it. They were pictures of all his friends. His eyes locked on the first one. It was a picture of Sonic, Sally, and their 2 children. Rotor marveled at how alike the parents and children looked if they were happy. Next to that was a picture of Tails, all grown up now. Rotor figured he was about 20 years old, and was even rumored to have a girlfriend. Her name was Mina. Tails smiled and waved to the camera. Besides that was a picture of Antoine, proud and tall in his captain's uniform. His grin was so wide that Rotor swore he saw the outline of the camera's flash it took in his picture. Bunny's picture was beside his. She sat in a seductive pose. Yes! One hand on her hip and another in her hair. Her smile and wink spoke volumes to the lonely walrus. Dude, get a boyfriend. There were other pictures beside her. He glanced at each one fondly. He would meet them all again soon enough, for he was approaching the palace. You could see the upper portion just over the horizon, the sun glinting out the waterfalls, reminding Rotor of a blazing jewel. He couldn't wait to see them, especially Bunny and Antoine, the former having been rid of the curse of roboticization, and the latter finally realizing his dream of becoming captain of the Royal Guard. Rotor wondered if Antoine was still harboring some resentment at Sonic for taking away his only love. Bunny, he knew, was doing extremely well, having adopted a baby girl rabbit. Her name was Cream. Rotor could still remember the letter she had written several years ago. He brought Bunny and her daughter small gifts for his travels. It was a child named Cheese, as well as a gift and several interesting gadgets from his World Odyssey. Just then, he slapped his head. He forgot all about Sonic and Sally's wedding present. He was extremely unhappy that he had not been able to attend their wedding several years ago. He swore to make up for it. He had heard that it was a bonsoir indeed. The party lasted for days. Tails had wrote in his letter, and celebrations did not seem to want to end. He also confided to Rotor that he was happy that the two finally tied the knot after several years. This caused Rotor to pause in thought for a moment. He had been close to marrying too. There was once someone special in his life, a number of years ago, but they had parted and not kept in touch. Rotor wondered what he was doing now. All in all, he was satisfied that the planet had been successfully able to shake off the tragedies it had endured for 10 years of Robotnik's so-called rule. He was finally happy to be home. His onboard computer registered the fact that he had passed by a perimeter marking. His radio immediately crackled to life. Attention, sir. This is Palace Air Command. Please state your ID code and destination. Rotor pressed a few buttons. This is Rotor. Access code 141 en route to Acorn Palace. There's a pause on the other end. Your ID code is 10 years out of date, 4101, but checks out under Central Registry. Is there alert according to your arrival? I'd like to make my visit a surprise, if you don't mind, Rotor said, adjusting his glasses. Acknowledged. The palace has been lowered. Have a safe landing, Sir Rotor. The radar clicked off. Rotor nodded. You didn't want to try landing with the palace shields up. You would fry him instantly. They were so powerful. He turned his attention back to his controls, preparing for his landing.